Alright, so I'm going on my first call. It just so happens to be my other vehicle. My Xterra is having some starting issues. I've had to warranty out the battery twice in the last year because it just doesn't get driven. So I've got the battery fully charged and I put it in yesterday, gonna move it, and it didn't want to start. So I'm gonna go try and figure out what's going on, whether it's a starter or a burnt terminal going to the starter from trying to start it in the freeze we had. But let's get there. Alright, we're over here in my old apartment. Got the battery hooked back up. Going to run a battery test. Make sure that it is not just a bad battery again. Got 750 cold cranking amps. So it's good. It's got 12.2 volts. It's got more than 100% of its cold cranking amps. So it should be enough to start. So my theory about the starter not getting the signal might be correct. Okay, so we're gonna dive into that. The starter's down here. You can barely see it right down in there. Gonna have to get a back probe in there to the signal wire and see if it's getting a signal while I'm cranking. Okay, so I've got the inner fuse panel off, and this fuse right here is my starter signal fuse. I'm not getting keys on. Okay, so you can see the light. You can barely see it. Focus. That is the ABS module fuse, but the starter signal, I'm getting power on either side. It's not a good sign. I'm not gonna be able to show this because I need both hands. I'm going to try and crank it and see if I get any light. Okay, so I tried to crank it, and it lights my test light on both sides of the fuse, which means I am getting power to and through the fuse. So now I need to pull up the diagram and trace what's going on. Okay, I've got my voltmeter back probed into the signal wire, hopefully, and then hooked to the battery. I've tested and made sure that it's getting good readings on the meter before I did it, just in case it was a false reading. So I'm going to turn the key, and then I'll come back and see if I got any voltage. Okay, let's watch that back and see if it's got any voltage. Okay, so I have a test light that I was trying to use, but I don't know that I was getting good connection. So now I have my test horn that I have hooked to battery ground and then hooked directly into the signal wire connector for the starter. So when I crank it, we should hear a horn. If we don't, then I'm not getting signal to the starter above the starter connector, which these starters have a wire that goes, it's like a foot long that connects to that connector. So let's crank her over and find out. keys. Alright. Well, that tells me that I'm not getting signal. Not getting signal to the starter. Let's go ahead and see if hooking the jump box up does anything. Because the battery might be getting a little low from sitting here. Let's see, what do I do with that? Also make sure that the connector on the battery is tight. It should have had enough connection to at least send a signal to the starter. So I was getting 12 volts to my readout on the inside. Okay, so now let's retest. I'm not getting it in park. I'm not getting it in neutral. So now we have a wiring issue for sure. I'm going to have to look deeper into the wiring and see what's going on. I was really hoping it was just a starter and I could get one, throw it on, and get this thing moved over to the new place. But it's looking like it's going to be a little more. Hopefully, maybe it's a relay. Maybe there's the bad neutral safety switch, fuse or relay, but we'll look into that. I don't know if you can see, that is what a blown fuse looks like. This is a 15 amp fuse. That goes to the engine control ignition. That's that one. And then let's check the one above it just in case. Turn that key on. Okay, it's good on both sides. So we're going to put a fuse in it and see if we can get this thing started. We may have just found the problem. Okay, I've got the new fuse installed. I still have that horn hooked up. So let's see if we get a signal. Still not getting a signal to that. All right, so maybe that's not the issue. Okay, so I had to take a break after installing that fuse and still not getting any signal to the starter because I had that horn hooked up in place of the starter so that when I cranked it, if the horn honked, that should have shown me, yes, I'm getting signal to the starter, but it didn't honk, so I'm gonna have to keep going. So far, we know that the fuse wasn't the fix. The starter still isn't getting signal through the relay. And I have to figure out if the relay is getting power to it and if it's getting ground and if it's distributing those properly. Stay tuned for part 2.